Hello, everyone. I'm Dzhangar Sanjiyev, the founder of the MatchFamilies app, and I'm the guest at the German Experience.
It's the Germany Experience, the podcast about life in Germany as seen through the eyes of outsiders. I'm your host, and with me this week, as you heard, is you know what, you've just introduced yourself, and I'm still gonna make a mess of your name, and I apologize profusely. Let me try it. It's Dzhangar?
Dzhangar, yes.
Dzhangar. Okay, Dzhangar. My goodness, the Germans must have a field day with that.
Oh, that's a problem. They would say Dzhangar. But I got used to that already. So
you do kind of think, because my name, a lot of people say as over here they say Shaun instead of Sean. I've just gotten used to it. Like, what can you do?
I don't correct people, even if it's like someone, in the supermarket or someone you meet occasionally.
Yeah,
that's fine for me.
Yeah, I do try and get it right when they're guests on my podcast, because it's kind of the polite thing to do, but I don't always manage it. And if I happen to say your name wrong during our discussion, just tell me, correct me.
Yeah, and let's keep my last name. Because it's going to be a nightmare for you.
Man, I wasn't even going to go there. I was just moving on with the topics. We're not even going to go there. So it's really a pleasure to have you on. You have come onto the podcast to discuss your experiences when you first moved to Germany. You went through a lot of hardships, and these hardships, I think, are things that a lot of foreigners face. It's about meeting friends, and specifically like-minded families. If you move with a family, you want to meet like-minded families, and that's a very, very difficult thing to do. It's difficult enough to make friends, but to meet the right kind of families is hard enough. And your struggles led you to starting MatchFamilies, which is an app that people can use to do this. So we're going to get into all of that. I'm very excited to talk about your story and how it ended up at that point. But before we do, I just want to make one announcement, and this is a weird announcement for me to make, and it's something that I've delayed for a long time on the podcast. I've started a Buy Me a Coffee account. So if people, I know there's a lot of listeners who really enjoy the podcast. So this is what I'm going to tell you. You got two options, right? If you like this podcast, the first thing you can do, if you like this podcast, is look in the show notes, click on the link there. It takes you to my Buy Me a Coffee page, and you can make a donation. And that money will go to helping the podcast, because the podcast costs a lot of money every month to maintain. There's a lot of running costs, like hosting, and you'd be surprised at how many things require costs to just run a simple podcast. So if you feel the need, you don't have to. This podcast is still going to be there, so you don't have to. But if you're really enjoying it, that would mean the world to me if you did that. Alternatively, if you just want to spread the word about the podcast, that is great too. That is something that I like too. So if you like the show, tell a friend, go and post in the social media groups on Facebook and Instagram, and just post a link to an episode or something that you really enjoyed. I would appreciate that if you like the podcast. That's all I'm saying. So now that we've got that all out the way,
I think many people enjoy your podcast, so I think you deserve a good cup of coffee for sure.
I deserve a cup. Thank you. At the very least, I deserve a cup of coffee. It's very difficult to ask for that kind of thing, though. Like, it's something that I've really struggled with to get to this point, but actually it's no big deal. Like, if people want to give, they can give, and they don't, then they don't. But yeah,
you do your job. You do your job. Yeah, you just ask.
Yeah, I'm just asking. So Dzhangar, let's get to you. First of all, let's start off with your background. So you landed up in Germany at one point, but tell me where you're from and how it ended up that you were in Germany.
Right. So I'm originally coming from the Republic of Kalmykia, which is in the south of European part of Russia, where like Asian people live. So I was born there and raised, and I used to work in the management consulting space, namely in human resource consulting, my entire career, my entire life in several countries, in Thailand and in Moscow, where I was the general manager of that company. It's an international consulting organization, global, actually American. So I spent a big part of my career there. And then 6 years ago, they offered me a job, a relocation to Germany, the Düsseldorf area, which I accepted. And in Germany, I was responsible for sales of our consulting services in Central Europe, mainly in Germany, Austria, Netherlands, and Switzerland. So I had been doing this for like 4 years before quitting and founding MatchFamilies.
Yeah. So I'm very excited to hear about that, because that is something we're going to talk about later on in our discussion, like that feeling of quitting a job, what it's like. It must have taken a lot of courage to do that step. But before we get to that, just as you mentioned, as you said, you founded MatchFamilies, and that is an app that helps like-minded families meet each other. And you started it based on challenges that you experienced when you first moved to Germany. So tell me a little bit about these challenges.
So I moved to Germany with my family. So I have two lovely daughters who are now 8 and 13 years old, but they were way younger when we moved. And I knew a couple of people in Germany before we moved, but really like a couple of colleagues, and that's it. So we didn't have any acquaintances, no friends, no family, completely starting a new life in a new place and adjusting to that life. So of course there have been a lot of different kinds of challenges, like language and learning German, adapting to local norms and processes, systems, and mentalities also.
Yes.
But I think one of the biggest challenges was to form the social circle, the support circle, because if you don't have anyone around, no family, for example, not even anyone to take care of kids, so you cannot even go somewhere or travel for a day or two. So there needs to be someone who we call a support circle, your friends in our case. So finding friends was one of the biggest priorities, and we've been very active. And I'm a very sociable person, so it's rather easy for me to make new social connections.
Right.
But even with that, it was my kind of personality. I found it pretty complicated to find like-minded people. You come across different kinds of people, mostly through kids' friends. Like that will be like 90% of all families who are listening, or expats who are listening these podcasts. They will say, "Yeah, we made most of the connections through kids. If they're married with kids, because the kids, they find friends very quickly. Let's play together."
Yeah,
For
I
us
always
adults,
wish that we could do that, like as easily as kids. I've watched my kids do that. They will just literally go up in a playground. Some other kid will come into their general proximity. Next thing, they're sharing a toy, and the next thing, they're buddies for life. I'm like, why can't we do that as adults?
Yeah, absolutely. My kids themselves, they were very sociable also, and they would come home and say like, "I have a new friend. Let's meet with them with their family." We were like, "Yeah, sure." So for us, it's more difficult. So it's not like you can ask someone to go as kids in the playground. Let's be friends. We have lots of barriers and fears, like fear of being rejected. What if they say, "Well, not sure," or "I'm not giving my number to strangers," or "Well, actually, I don't know." So people are afraid of these kind of things to ask. Out of the blue, so you're not approaching people in the park and saying, "Hey, you look like a cool family. We want to become friends with you," right? They would say like, "You're crazy."
It comes across a little creepy,
Yeah. And Germans can easily tell you like, "No, Entschuldigung," and that's it. That's it. So you will feel bad once you hear that. So there are these kind of barriers, and then another challenge is that you don't know if the other families are looking for friends at all.
Yeah.
Maybe they already have friends and you're just not interested in, talking to you further. Maybe they're just friendly, just being polite, but not necessarily that they want to start developing any sort of friendly relationships with you. So there are many unknowns that are also a barrier that prevents you from reaching out to people more kind of actively. And also it's Germany, in our case, was the German society mentality that we mentioned also, that people are more closed off. It's not Spain, it's not Ecuador or other places where you can easily connect with locals and have fun. Here, Germans need more time to allow you into their kind of private space, and that takes a lot of time.
It's a lot of time and a lot of energy, and it's a lot of, like you said, a lot of courage as well, which people maybe don't think about when they're coming to Germany. Is it takes a lot of courage to step out of your comfort zone, to put yourself up, like you said, that fear of rejection. You put yourself in a situation where you could actually be rejected, and the Germans can be pretty direct about how they're feeling at that point. And there's a lot of barriers that you have to get through. The first thing is find the compatible people. Then if you want to be friends, they have to have like also maybe families, if they want to hang around with your family. Because if you've got kids, they don't have kids, yes, it can work, but sometimes it's a little bit difficult because when you have kids, your schedule's a bit different to people who don't have kids. So then there's that. And then the kids have to maybe be similar ages, similar tastes. And it's so much to think. And you I think one of the things that you said to me before we had this, before we started recording this, is that it takes a lot of luck.
Yeah, they may live just a block away from you, but you don't know.
Yeah.
And your chances to meet them, they're close to zero.
Yeah.
So that your path will ever cross. Yeah. So back to your question of challenge, I think one of the things that we found most challenging is exactly this kind of making sure that kind of all of the criteria match. Because, of course, with the time we started to connect with some people at work, my wife would come from work and would say like, hey, she's a doctor, by the way, like a general practitioner. And she would come home and say, hey, I have a colleague and, they have such a cool family. She's great. And her husband seems also like from the conversations. And I was like, oh, so what they're doing? So who are they? Well, why not? Let's connect. And then we will start going into the detail and realize, like, these are little things, maybe, like one family, she said, but all good, but they're vegetarian. And I'm like, but we love grilling barbecues and eat meat every day or almost every day. Like, not sure, but that's not the huge criteria. But there's always something like small things, yeah. Or kids are smaller than ours, and it'll go like maybe they will not play with each other, even of different gender. Like they have boys and our girls, because they're small, they used to be smaller, and they only want to play with other girls and not the boys. So these are the things. Sometimes it's no go. Sometimes you're like evaluating whether it's a good match, but it's a long process. You're like chatting, discussing this, and then. One day I thought, like, why is it so complicated? As you said, why is it not like with kids? And how can you find a perfect match or perfect matches? And this is one of the things that sparked me to pursue my dream and finalize this idea of MatchFamilies.
Yeah. We'll get to that in a second. But I'm quite interested in that what you're saying about the difficulties for families to meet each other. There's another level to this as well, and it's something that I've been thinking a lot about. I had a guest on my show. The link will be in the show notes. I can't remember her name offhand, but she's from the Expat and Spouses Monitor, expatsmonitor.de. And what they did is they did a survey of expats and specifically looking at things like the gender gap for expats. So what happens is a lot of women come along as the trailing spouse, as it is called. And then maybe the husband is going to work, he's meeting friends in the office, but the woman is staying at home, maybe taking care of the housework and the children and so on. And then and she might not have the same kind of opportunities to meet people. And that's why it's also important to have the sort of friends, family friends, like where you're interacting and both husband and wife have equal opportunities to make friends and to get that. So I think that's also an added dimension to this whole thing that I wanted to mention.
Well, ideally, you want to make it work for everyone, right?
Yes.
Not just for you, because I can hang out with my buddies from work and the bars, but then you're kind of excluding the family. Yeah. And ideally, is that you find someone with whom everyone could have fun at the same time.
Yeah. So, during these initial phases that you were in Germany and you started realizing how difficult it is to make these connections, how difficult it is to find the right family connections, what did that do about your view of your time in Germany? How were you feeling about your whole experience here?
That's a great point. And that's actually what inspired me to start what I've started. Because after 1 year in Germany, I asked my wife if she's happy in Germany, because we moved because of my work. She was a doctor in Moscow and happy and everything. She couldn't speak German, and it's a big stress for her. This move was a big stress for her and for kids. And I asked her whether she's happy, whether it was a good decision, and she would answer something like, yes, everything is great. Like, we love the country, we're settled here, all good. The only thing is that I miss my close friends with their home country, like kind of a shoulder to cry on or someone really close. Yeah. And I said, like, I feel the same. Like, my close friends are still not here, but I want them to be here. In 1 year, the story repeated. I again asked her, and she said no. And then I realized, like, it's been 2 years in Germany. We have lots of acquaintances. Our kids have friends, and we're befriended with a couple of families who are our friends. We can call them friends, not necessarily like super close, maybe, but yeah. So it's like a bitter feeling, like this is the only thing that makes you feel unhappy a bit, or not satisfied. Other than that, I wouldn't say anything. Germany is a great country. So we were able to learn the language, adapt, work. Everything was good. Kids adapted at school, at kindergarten. Everything was great. We're living in a great place. So it's an improvement on all fronts, apart from this one thing. And therefore, I thought, like, okay, so that's such a huge factor that impacts the level of our happiness in this country. It's actually number one, something worth paying attention to. And I started kind of to investigate. So, okay, I know that there is a family that is a great match to us, living in Düsseldorf or neighboring cities, 100%, with kids of same age and with whom we could become great friends. And I thought, like, how do I find them? Tried like Facebook groups, and it doesn't work because all profiles are individual. They're not family profiles. You don't know whether people are married, what are their interests, do they have kids, what's the kids' age. Tried a few other platforms, no luck. I thought, like, okay, there must be an app for it, but there was nothing. So I decided to create one.
So you have gone out and created the app that you needed, basically.
Yeah, to your question, based on my experience in Germany and realizing that the biggest hurdle, the biggest challenge that I had was actually my social life and my level of happiness in this country, my level of feeling home. And you cannot feel home in the country if you don't have close friends, good friends nearby.
Yeah. So I'm interested now. You get to this point where you realize this, like you mentioned, it was a dream of yours, I guess, to become an entrepreneur and to do this kind of thing. You get to the point where you realize that you want to do this, like you want to start your own app. I mean, you quit your job, didn't you?
Yes. Yeah.
Did you quit it right away when you decided? Had you built something?
No, not right away. I started thinking about the idea of MatchFamilies, as I said, like after a couple of years of living in Germany and realizing that it's so difficult here.
Yeah.
And there needs to be a solution. There was no solution. I was thinking about the solution, but not very actively. And then in 2020 came Corona, right? The pandemic. And things went really crazy on all fronts. Like at work also, like lots of things have changed for millions and millions of people. And the year has become so crazy that I thought, okay, that there was some time like when we were in lockdown, sitting at home, to sit and think, what do you want to do with your life? Like everything is changing around you and will not be the same. And you're right. I had this dream all my life to become an entrepreneur, to create something on my own. And I had this idea of MatchFamilies before, and I thought, like, if I'm not doing this in this crazy year, I will never do that. Will never. That was the biggest catalyst. So I thought, like, man, that's time. So I figured out a few options for me. Like, in Germany, there is this program called Gründungszuschuss, when they support people moving from their corporate work to entrepreneurship and founding own companies. So I used this option. So I kind of prepared my path and followed it in a kind of informed way. The other thing is that...
Can I just ask you about that before we move on? That what did you call it? A
Gründungszuschuss. So
Gründungszuschuss. And that is available to foreigners who are not German citizens?
Yes, it's available to those people who had worked in Germany for over 2 years, I think, if I remember well. Paying all of the social payments, like being employed. And then if you decide to start your own business, the government can support you with this program. So they basically pay you, in my case, because I have a family, it's 67% of your previous salary for half a year, which can be extended through other things. So it can be a whole year when you're paid. And I knew about it from some of my friends. I knew that I'm eligible for this kind of a program. and therefore it was rather not so stressful for me to change, to quit the job and use this program, because I knew that I'm going to have some time to concentrate on my idea, focus on it. The only thing that I didn't know that the pandemic will last more than 2.5 years. I thought it's going to be over, at the end of 2020, maybe half of 2021 or something.
Oh, those were naive times. They were wonderful. We're like, this is a great few months and can't wait to get back out.
Yeah, exactly. I thought like, okay, so people are isolated now, but then after the isolation is over, my app will just be exactly on time. We had to delay a little bit, as you understand.
Yeah. So at which point was it that you realized that you could take that step and quit your job and work on MatchFamilies full time?
So I started working on the idea, talking to people, gathering their opinions, running like little polls, posting on Facebook groups, also asking people, if you had this, would you appreciate that? And I received like 100% response rate that it's a great idea. We would love to. We'll 100% use this thing. So people convinced me that they want that. There is a room or a space for this kind of an app. And then I come across a research from Harvard. This is the longest research on the adult life in the world. So they used to ask several thousands of people for 8 years, like 80, the same question: what makes you happy? What makes you happy if you're 20 years old, 30 years old, 40 years old, 60 years old? And the results were very interesting. So the answer was obvious. My friends and my family is what makes me happy.
Yeah.
Also, they have proven that having close relationships with family and friends helps you live longer lives. So the most important in people's lives is family and friends. The most important, more than money, more than fame, more than career. That's the most important. And then I realized that millions of people don't have that, like me. Yes. I moved to Germany, no friends, no family. I don't have what's most important in my whole life.
Yeah.
And that's for millions of people the same. Yeah. And I thought, like, this idea is big enough for me to quit my job right now and go for it full gas.
What did that feel like? Were you terrified, or was this just, were you so determined that this was going to be?
No, I'm very excited. I'm still very excited. I think it's a huge problem for our society. Yeah. I'm very excited because we're live. We have thousands of people using it, thousands of people sharing feedback, saying thank you for this app thing. Thank you. We've improved our lives. We met friends. The life is not so bad as it was before. I have my social life back. That's a big feeling of kind of fulfillment that you've created something that people appreciate.
Yeah.
So, and that was from the very beginning. So never received like negative feedback, people saying like, no, it will not work or it's a bad idea. Like all people in Steel are saying it's a great idea, very much needed, very big pain. So that of course motivates and inspires me to do more and more and continue my journey, and we're making great progress.
Yeah, that I went onto the app after when I knew that you were coming on the podcast to test it out and just to see. I live pretty rurally, so I'm way out in the middle of nowhere. I'm like 45 kilometers from the nearest city, and I thought there's no ways I'm going to find a family that's near to me. There's no ways. So like, I was accepting that it's going to give me matches in cities. And true as anything, there were 2 families within a short radius of where I am. So I already had options.
Oh.
So I right swiped. So let's just explain how it works. It's a little bit like the other matchmaking apps that people might know of, where you get you fill in your profile. The more information you give, obviously, the better. You can give a description of yourself, your interests, those kinds of things, and then based on your location, it gives you some recommendations of like-minded families who are in close to you. And I can tell you that it worked for me. Like I got a few options where I was thinking, hey, I would like to meet these people. I would really like to do that. So I did. I made a few right swipes yesterday. I just checked my app now while you were talking. I've had no swipes back. So I don't know if it's me, but anyway, there are a lot of people already using this app is what I wanted to say with that point.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, you need to give them time because we're a new app, right? It's not like Facebook or Instagram that people are using daily.
Yeah.
So they would, check the app maybe on a weekly basis. or
Well, to be
because
fair, it's not even, it hasn't even been 24 hours yet. So, so I'm going to relax a little about it.
I know some people like take it really seriously, like going through the details, thinking, because it's very kind of intimate thing. Like if you say yes, that means you will get in touch, you can chat, you can arrange a meetup and meet. And it's kind of an important decision for many people.
It is.
And yeah, so they think carefully.
And you need to discuss it with your partner as well, potentially. Like if I'm not just, because I'm trying to match families, I need to show my wife the profiles and say, hey, I mean, I didn't, but I would in a normal situation where I'm not just testing it out. I would show her like, hey, what do you think about these people? They also like to, I don't know, go for hikes in the area or something like that. And then, we could say yes together. Let's give that a try. Because like you say, it's a big thing. You're saying, okay, I'm opening myself up to a potential relationship with you, again, like the other matchmaking app. So you kind of want to make sure it's the right thing to do. So it's not just like a rash decision. So I'm really looking forward to what happens with my potential matches. So yeah, I do think it's a great thing, and I think it's a very important opportunity. And one thing I did want to mention is that it's free to use, this app. You download it and you can literally start using it right away. You don't have to pay anything. There is a certain amount that you pay that you can get a few extra things. Like if you accidentally right swipe, there's an undo button. I learned yesterday. Like I thought, don't worry, I can undo this. But there are of course certain things that you can get with a bit of an additional payment. But the core functionality is there without having to pay anything. You can pick it up and use it right away.
Exactly. So we're building new features, of course, to make sure that all of our users get more value from the app, especially longer term. We'll be running events in major German cities for families, for family-friendly events where you can come as an entire family. Because what our users said in the testing phases also, that it's great to match with someone, but we also want to attend events where you could meet like several families and see whether you click, whether you have
absolutely
something in common, and then exchange numbers and continue building those friendships.
I really like that idea. You can just go hang out, have a good time, even if you don't meet anyone. But you know that everyone's there looking for some kind of connection, and that you have more of an opportunity of basically hooking up with a family that you can get along with.
Absolutely, and we want to make it like inclusive, so that you don't just bring kids for them to have fun, like with all of the other events, and then wait until they're done with it. But where kids could have fun and parents could chat. So kind of more inclusive events, not just for moms, but for entire family. So we're going to be running those regularly. And the first one we start in the middle of July in Munich area, and also in Berlin and Düsseldorf areas, where we have most of the users. But on top of that, we're building other things, other features, like, for example, you can join groups per interest, so be part of the supportive community. That support circle is what we want. So we want to create the support circle of cool families nearby in the app, but also add things like planner of your social activities, which activities you can attend this week, next week, if you have a free weekend, or who are of other families is available, so we could bring together more people to socialize. So it's like a socialization and community app. But we also want to, because we also launched in the US, so we want to make sure that families, let's say you find a family that is a great match to you in the US, and you could swap houses. Because you have similar interests, you can meet, it's just creates more trust for this kind of decision and save money. So these are kind of the directions that we're heading towards.
Yes, very cool. So there's a lot of stuff still to come, but like I said, the core functionality is already up and working and in place.
And we'll keep it free, for sure. All core functions. Yeah.
Very cool. And I'm very excited to see how it develops further. And I must say, I love these stories about people who go through their own difficulties. I had a similar guest as well, and she started a company called Book a Local, for example, where it's a platform that you can book Germans to go and take care of, to come with you for teacher visits or doctor visits or whatever, just like, that kind of thing. And it came out of her difficulties that she experienced. That was a few episodes ago. And then similar to that, you've lived it. You knew what the difficulties are, what you wanted to do, and you've built that thing. And I think that is very inspiring and very, very cool. I like it a lot.
Yeah, that's a huge another aspect. And that's a good point and a great solution that you mentioned. Because, for us expats, it's very difficult to make friends with Germans, right?
Yes.
And then we need to learn German language. How do you do that if you don't have friends or just no one to talk to?
Yeah.
Then this kind of book in German is a cool thing. I know that in our app, also many expats are looking for German families so that they make first German friends because it's hard to find those who are open.
So if you are German, because I do have Germans who listen to this podcast, if you're a German and you've got a family and you are interested, I guess if you're listening to this podcast and you're German, it's because you have an interest in foreigners in Germany and what they've join. You could meet a foreign family. There's also good for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you one more question before we go, is that because you're sitting in New York City at the moment. I'm interviewing you in New York City, and you're there because of some kind of startup program, if I understood correctly, right? So
yes,
you're there for
we are participating in startup acceleration program that helps international startups enter American market and raise funds in the US.
Okay,
and the reason for this was simple because the problem of loneliness and isolation is universal. People feel lonely in Germany. Yeah, I must say, I'm interviewing families in New York. They have more problems than we in Germany, I'm telling you. Yeah. It's isolated society, fake friendships, people not follow up, everything artificial. There are huge problems related to friendships. So in Germany, we're more or less in a good condition with making friends. Here, it's a disaster. So so we want to raise funds here and develop further.
Yeah. So are you away from your wife and family at the moment?
Yes, for almost 2 months, and I'm missing them. That's well, my kids are saying, "Papa, that's the first time when you're not with us for like so long, for 2 months. Not I used to travel for work before, like maybe for a couple of weeks maximum. Yeah. Maybe 3 weeks I think was maximum, but now it's
2 months.
2 months.
2 months is long.
It's a lot of time, man, and I'm missing them so much. I see them in my dreams. So, and here I feel so lonely. Like literally, you come home after the working hours, and there is just no one, no family, no kids. You're just on your own. Yeah. Of course, I have here friends, but it's not every day that you're meeting them. Yeah. So this feeling of loneliness is literally killing you from inside. Yeah. There is research, by the way, that the impact of loneliness on people's health is compared to a pack of cigarettes per day.
I can imagine that. I can imagine, especially loneliness that continues over a long period of time. I can imagine that is the same kind of stress on your body.
2 months for me, but I already feel like it's really killing me. Yeah. It's bad mood. I'm not happy. Staying in my apartment just alone. And because of the time zones, I can't even chat with someone because you guys are sleeping there in Europe. That's a disaster.
It's tough.
Never, ever felt I so lonely. But it's all over. Here in the US, according to local research, every fourth American feels lonely and isolated. Every fourth person here feels lonely and isolated because of their society, which is so, close, individual.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's crazy. It's such a big problem. I'm really looking forward, and I'll do my best to solve this. I don't want people to feel lonely. Feel so bad. It's such a bad thing. Worst feeling ever. And now I'm feeling it so vividly.
Yeah. When do you go back to Germany?
Thanks God, at the end of this week.
Really? Okay, so soon. So it is soon. And how's your wife coped alone in Germany? Like that must have been tough for her with 2 kids alone in Germany as well. Is she doing okay?
She's my hero. She's my hero. She works full time as a doctor. It's very time, especially in the Corona times. As a doctor, but she coped with everything. Luckily, we have friends.
Hello.
We don't have family in Germany.
But that's exactly where it happens. That's exactly where you need your families. Like
exactly
in times like these when things like this is going on.
Because my younger one, she goes to classes together with another young girl, and their parents said, like, we can bring those to the swimming classes all together, no worries. Can pick her up and everything, because my wife couldn't, obviously, for some of the things, and also drawing classes. So these are people who can support you. If you don't have family, only friends can support you. And if not friends, my wife would have big problems and would have been way more unhappy of me being not there and blaming me or something. Yeah. But we're in a good situation. Thanks to our great friends. If they're listening to us, we love you.
Yeah. I do like the authentic New York City experience with the sirens in the background a few
Yes, I'm
seconds ago.
sorry.
I'm
Yes.
feeling like I'm there. It's like really,
Yeah,
really authentic.
it's Manhattan.
Dzhangar, it's been amazing talking to you. I'm very excited, like as I said, to watch this develop. I'm maybe even more excited that you get to see your family very soon. So thank you so
Thank you.
much for taking the time and coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Sean. Thank you for your time, attention to this topic, and for your invitation. It was my pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right, see ya.
Thank you.